Hello and welcome to Election Night 2028. Today is going to be the Democratic primary for the 2028 presidential election. As we know, Ron DeSantis has a negative 24% favorability rating, with only 30% of Americans only 36% of Americans that are registered to vote approve of President Ron DeSantis, where 60% disapprove. DeSantis has a very low favorability by the 2026 midterms. This was even worse than it is now, having him being approved by only 34% of registered voters, disapproved of by 63%. We have our first candidate reporting on May 29th, 2027. Former Vice President Kamala Harris has announced she will be trying to run for president again. She has a net negative 14 favorability, with only 41% approving of her as a politician in general. Here is her speech. I'm not going to read it out loud, but you can read. We have another candidate joining the race, reporting on July 21st, 2027. Former Representative Tulsi Gabbard has confirmed she will be running for president once again. She has a net negative 3 favorability rating nationwide. And here's her speech. We have another candidate joining the race, reporting on August 10th, 2027. U.S. former Secretary of Transportation Pete Buttigieg has announced his presidential bid for 2028. He has a net plus 2% approval rating across the nation, with 48% approving of him and 46% disapproving. Here is Buttigieg's speech. We have another candidate joining the race, reporting on November 18th, 2027. Current Ohio Senator Sherrod Brown announced his 2028 presidential bid after creating one of the most successful bills in recent American history. His favorability is very good, with a net 13 favorability, with 55% approving and 42% disapproving. Here is his speech. It is now January 9th, 2028, and we have our first Democratic primary poll. Sherrod Brown is polling at 37%, Pete Buttigieg is polling at 35%, Kamala Harris is polling at 18%, and Tulsi Gabbard is polling at 5%. With this, we can now project chances at nomination. Sherrod Brown has a 50% chance at nomination. Pete Buttigieg has a 44% chance at nomination. Kamala Harris has a 5.9% chance at nomination. And Tulsi Gabbard has a 0.1% chance at nomination. We have another candidate joining the race, reporting on January 30th, 2028. Current Virginia Senator Tim Kaine announces his bid for presidency in 2028 after being a long-serving senator and has been hyped up by the DNC. His favorability rating is a net 9, with 53% approving of him and 44% disapproving. Here is Kaine's speech. It is now February 2nd, 2028. We have another Democratic primary poll. Sherrod Brown is still leading at 35%. Pete Buttigieg is trailing closely behind at 32%. Tim Kaine is pulling quite significantly behind at 16%. Kamala Harris is pulling even further behind at 11%, and Tulsi Gabbard is pulling at a very low 6%. With this, we can now project chances at nomination. Sherrod Brown's chances have gone up despite a new candidate jumping into the race. Pete Buttigieg's chance has gone significantly down since the last poll, and Tim Kaine is starting at 6.3%. Kamala Harris has significantly dropped down in chance, being at only 2.6% chance now. where Tulsi Gabbard is now at a 0.1% chance, same as before. We have our first poll closings in the state of Iowa. In Iowa, Pete Buttigieg, our first state being closed, Iowa, Pete Buttigieg will win. Here is our first set of delegates in place. We have our February 11th poll closings being only New Hampshire, the second state for its polls to close. New Hampshire will go to Tim Kaine, to a surprise. We can project that Tim Kaine will win New Hampshire. New Hampshire will have this many delegates going to each candidate. Buttigieg narrowly lost New Hampshire, and Buttigieg is still leading. It is now February 22nd, and we have Nevada poll closings. Nevada, Sherrod Brown will win. Sherrod Brown won by 3 and is now leading Buttigieg by just 1 delegate. And it is now February 29th, and we have our next polls closed. South Carolina will go to Pete Buttigieg and Tim Kaine. It is a tie between the two, and it is at 17 delegates each. And Brown is at 13, and now Buttigieg is back in the lead. Buttigieg is so far looking good for the nomination. However, so few polls have closed that we are just yet to see what will happen. It is March 3rd, and we have quite a lot of poll closings. We have Alabama, Arkansas, Colorado, California, Maine, Minnesota, North Carolina, Massachusetts, Oklahoma, Texas, Tennessee, Utah, Vermont, and Virginia. And Oklahoma. I think I missed that, but yeah. Alabama will go to Pete Buttigieg. American Samoa, which I forgot to mention in the poll closings because it is not listed on map chart. But American Samoa's poll closings will happen here, and they will go to Sherrod Brown. Arkansas will go to Pete Buttigieg. California, one of the biggest prize pools in the entire primary, will go to Sherrod Brown. Colorado will go to Sherrod Brown. Maine will go to Sherrod Brown. Massachusetts will go to Sherrod Brown. Minnesota will go to Pete Buttigieg. North Carolina will go to Pete Buttigieg. Oklahoma will go to Sherrod Brown. Tennessee will go to Sherrod Brown. Texas will go to Sherrod Brown. This is another huge prize pool. Utah will go to Pete Buttigieg. Vermont will go to Sherrod Brown. Virginia will go to Tim Kaine, unsurprisingly. Democrats abroad will go to Pete Buttigieg. This is another one that was not mentioned in the poll closing announcement. Here's our new delegate counts. Sherrod Brown has taken a pretty good lead of over 500 delegates, or not 500, 50, excuse me. Things are now looking good for Sherrod Brown, but there is entirely room for Pete Buttigieg, Tim Kaine, and even Kamala Harris and Tulsi Gabbard to come back. It is now March 10th, and we have poll closings out of the following states: Idaho, Michigan, Mississippi, Missouri, North Dakota, and Washington. Idaho will go to Pete Buttigieg. Michigan will go to Sherrod Brown. Mississippi will go to Pete Buttigieg. Missouri will go to Sherrod Brown. And North Dakota will go to Pete Buttigieg. And Washington will go to Sherrod Brown. Here's our new map. Sherrod Brown is still leading, and it appears none of the new states have made it onto this map. We apologize for that. It is now March 12th, 2028, and we have another Democratic primary poll. Sherrod Brown is leading Pete Buttigieg by 3%. This poll is looking pretty good for Sherrod Brown still, and Tim Kaine is polling at 18%, improving off of the last poll. And Tulsi Gabbard has fallen even lower than she already is. Same goes for Kamala Harris. With this, we can now project chances at nomination based on the poll and already given delegates. Sherrod Brown has a 57% chance at nomination at this point. Pete Buttigieg has a 38% chance at nomination at this point. And Tim Kaine has a 4.2% chance. Tulsi Gabbard and Kamala Harris both having less than 1%. It is now March 14th, and the only polls being closed is Northern Marianas. And the Northern Marianas will go to Sherrod Brown. This now puts our new map with the states all closed in the previous map, where it did not show. That was a technical error. We are sorry for that. Along with the Northern Marianas. So here we have our new sets of states with their polls closed. Sherrod Brown is leading by 61 delegates over Pete Buttigieg. It is now March 17th, and we have some pretty big states with polls closing. Arizona, Florida, and Illinois will all have their polls closed. Arizona will go to Pete Buttigieg. Florida, the third biggest prize pool, excluding the superdelegates, will go to Pete Buttigieg. Sherrod Brown will take a huge win in Illinois, however, winning a bunch of their delegates. Sherrod Brown's lead has narrowed down a little bit because of Florida and Arizona. However, Illinois was a big enough boost for Sherrod Brown to stay in the lead. It is now April 7th, and we have our next poll closings out of the state of only Wisconsin. Wisconsin will go to Sherrod Brown, unsurprisingly. Sherrod Brown now has a 55 delegate lead over Pete Buttigieg. Tim Kaine is at 448 delegates, lagging behind both of the two candidates that are leading the most. And Kamala Harris and Tulsi Gabbard are looking very bad at this point. It is now April 10th, and we have poll closings in the state of Alaska and Wyoming. Alaska will go to Sherrod Brown, while Wyoming will go to Pete Buttigieg. The lead has not changed. Sherrod Brown is still leading by 55 delegates. It is now April 28th, and Ohio is having its polls closed. This is Sherrod Brown's home state. And unsurprisingly, Sherrod Brown will win Ohio. And on top of that, Pete Buttigieg will win Puerto Rico. Sherrod Brown has significantly strengthened the lead, even with Pete Buttigieg winning Puerto Rico. Sherrod Brown now has a 98 delegate lead over Pete Buttigieg. Things are starting to look very good for the Brown campaign, and Pete Buttigieg is going to need some help if he wants to catch back up. It is May 2nd, and we have Kansas with its polls closing. Kansas will go to Pete Buttigieg. This has made no impact on the map, and on top of that, there is a technical error. Kansas is not showing on this map. That is entirely on accident. I promise we will get that in next time. It is now May 12th, and Nebraska's polls are closing. Nebraska will also go to Pete Buttigieg. And now Kansas is showing, and so is Nebraska. Nebraska and Kansas combined will allow Pete Buttigieg to slightly narrow that lead. However, Brown is still leading by so much that it might be impossible for Buttigieg to catch back up. Gabbard and Harris are looking extremely bad right now, and it appears there's almost no physical way they can win. Kaine has a chance still, but is lagging significantly behind Brown and Buttigieg, leading to a near failure to the nomination. It is now May 19th, and Oregon's polls are closing. Oregon will go to Sherrod Brown. We apologize, Oregon is not showing on this map either. It is May 22nd, and we can now get poll closings out of Hawaii and Guam. We actually just realized that we can put these special territories on the map that we are using to show these poll closings. and now it is going to be much easier to remember to name them. Hawaii will go to Sherrod Brown, and Guam will go to Pete Buttigieg. With this, Hawaii and Guam will do almost nothing to the map, and we would like to still apologize for not putting Oregon on the map yet. It is now June 2nd, and we have quite a few poll closings. We have Delaware, DC, Indiana, Maryland, New Mexico, Pennsylvania, Rhode Island, Montana, and South Dakota. Delaware will go to Pete Buttigieg. DC will go to Pete Buttigieg. Indiana will go to Pete Buttigieg. Maryland will go to Sherrod Brown. Montana will go to Sherrod Brown. New Mexico will go to Sherrod Brown. Pennsylvania, this is a big win, will go to Sherrod Brown. Rhode Island will go to Pete Buttigieg. And South Dakota will go to Pete Buttigieg. Here's our new map. Sherrod Brown is still leading Pete Buttigieg. Things are beginning to look pretty good for the Brown campaign. Gabbard and Harris have almost no remaining chance at winning the nomination. Breaking news. Tulsi Gabbard and Kamala Harris have dropped out of the race. Here are their concession speeches. Here's Tulsi Gabbard's speech. Here's Kamala Harris' speech. June 6th has its... Here is June 6th poll closings. The Virgin Islands will go to Pete Buttigieg. Making almost no impact on the map. Virgin Islands going to Pete Buttigieg. Sherrod Brown still has a pretty good lead. It is now June 9th, and we have poll closings out of the states of Georgia and West Virginia. We apologize that the Virgin Islands still have their poll closing mark on them. Georgia will go to Sherrod Brown. West Virginia will go to Tim Kaine. This significantly strengthens Sherrod Brown's lead, and he is now leading by a little bit more than he was before. It is now June 23rd poll closings, and Kentucky and New York have their polls being closed right here. Kentucky will go to Sherrod Brown, and this is a huge win for Sherrod Brown. New York will go to Sherrod Brown. Breaking news. Tim Kaine has dropped out of the race. Here is his concession speech. We apologize for showing Kamala Harris' image rather than Tim Kaine's. It is now June 23rd, and we have poll closings in Louisiana and New Jersey. New Jersey will go to Pete Buttigieg, and Louisiana will also go to Pete Buttigieg. Pete Buttigieg has narrowed the lead, but not by enough. Things are looking pretty down for the Buttigieg campaign. It is now June 23rd, and we have our last state having its polls closed, Connecticut. Connecticut will go to Pete Buttigieg. This did not have much of an impact on the map. However, all that's left is the super delegates. This will ultimately decide who wins the primary. The Democratic primary, which with Ron DeSantis' very low approval rating, things are looking good for whoever wins this primary. And these superdelegates will go to Sherrod Brown, and with him already leading, we can now make a major projection. Sherrod Brown will win the Democratic primary for the 2028 presidential election. Here's the final map. Sherrod Brown has narrowly crossed the 2,000 delegate mark, and Pete Buttigieg is sitting at 1876. Here is Buttigieg's concession speech. Here is Brown's victory speech. Thank you for watching. I wanted to say I'm very sorry for all the errors, and I'm also very sorry it took this long. I kind of just got burnt out of making this, but I'm sorry it took a while. I'm going to, now with Sherrod Brown being the Democratic nominee, I'm also a little too lazy to make a Republican primary, so let's just say DeSantis wins the primary again, because, well, DeSantis is the incumbent president, and things are looking very bad for him. So yeah, I will be doing a video talking about who runs what kind of campaign, whether they run a good campaign or a bad campaign. We will see what happens next time. Thank you guys so much for watching, and goodbye.